feels like it's everywhere you look these days, right? Like every day there's a new headline about some amazing AI breakthrough.
Yeah.
But what if all this hype is actually blinding us to even bigger opportunities? I mean, it's a question worth asking, right?
Definitely.
And that's actually what we're going to be diving into today. We're looking at an article by Eleanor Thomas in Comment Central.
Yeah.
And it features the perspective of billionaire tech investor Tej Kohli. Now, he makes a pretty provocative argument. He says that AI is overhyped.
Interesting.
And he would know, right? He's invested over £100 million in AI himself.
Wow.
So this isn't some AI doomsayer. It's somebody who's actually putting his money where his mouth is. But he's basically saying, let's take a step back. What if we're so focused on AI that we're missing out on other really game-changing tech? So what do you think about that?
Well, you know, it's kind of like what happened in the 1970s when personal computers first came out. Everybody thought PCs were the be-all and end-all. All right, this is going to change everything. But then came the internet and mobile technology and all these other innovations that arguably had an even bigger impact.
Right, so we're potentially at a similar crossroads now with AI. We're all laser focused on it, but what's brewing in the background that we might be missing? I mean, some hype is good though, right? It attracts investment and talent, which could actually lead to even faster progress.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a balance.
Right.
I mean, hype can create momentum, but it can also lead to maybe misallocating resources.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And Kohli is not saying we should just abandon AI research altogether, but he is arguing for a more holistic approach. He talks about the difference between narrow AI,
Okay.
which is what we see a lot of today, like your chatbots, your recommendation algorithms, very task-specific.
Right, specialized tools, basically.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then there's AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Okay, so narrow AI, like we said, is like a specialized tool, really good at one specific thing, but AGI would be more like a flexible, adaptable mind, like a human brain that can learn and apply knowledge across different areas.
Exactly. And Kohli believes that the revolutionary potential of AGI far outweighs the impact of even the most advanced narrow AI we have today.
Wow.
He sees AGI as something that could reshape industries and society, potentially on a scale greater than anything we've seen before.
That's a bold statement.
Well,
What makes him so confident about AGI's potential? Is there any evidence that suggests we're even close to achieving that level of artificial intelligence?
well, he points to things like NVIDIA's Grace Hopper superchip, for example,
Okay.
which represents a massive leap forward in computational power. And this kind of technology, he argues, is bringing us closer to the kind of processing power that would be needed for AGI. But here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
He's saying that even AGI might not be the biggest game changer out there.
Hold on. So even AGI, this mind-bogglingly powerful AI that can learn and adapt and solve problems across all these different domains, that's not the be-all and end-all. What could possibly be more transformative than that?
Well, Kohli believes there are two sort of overlooked giants that deserve just as much attention, if not more.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What are these overlooked giants?
Biotech and quantum computing.
Okay, so biotech and quantum computing. He sees these fields as having the potential to solve some of humanity's biggest challenges.
Right.
Let's unpack these overlooked giants a little bit.
Right.
Starting with biotech. I mean, everyone's heard of gene editing CRISPR.
Right.
But how does Kohli see this field as being truly revolutionary? What's the potential beyond what we're hearing in the headlines?
Well, think about gene editing. You're familiar with it, but imagine if CRISPR allows us to eliminate genetic diseases.
Wow.
Completely. Or what if we could regrow damaged organs?
Yeah.
I mean, these are possibilities that Kohli is highlighting in the article. It's not science fiction anymore. We're talking about solutions to problems that have plagued humanity for centuries.
That is a pretty compelling argument for biotech. But what about quantum computing? I'll admit I'm not as familiar with this one. What kind of revolutionary potential does Kohli see there?
Well, quantum computing, it's really about harnessing these kind of bizarre rules of quantum mechanics to solve problems that are impossible for even the most powerful classical computers.
Okay, so it's a whole different way of thinking about computing then.
Exactly. It's not just faster. It's fundamentally different. And Kohli points to a couple of pretty interesting examples that I think really illustrate the potential here.
Okay, let's hear it.
So first, imagine if we could design drugs with pinpoint accuracy, targeting specific diseases at a molecular level. That's the kind of precision medicine that quantum computing could unlock.
Wow. So no more side effects, or at least far fewer.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And then second, think about optimizing really complex systems, like traffic flow in cities or even global supply chains. Quantum computers could revolutionize logistics on a scale we can barely even imagine right now.
Okay, so we've got biotech, tackling these fundamental human challenges like disease and organ regeneration. And then we've got quantum computing potentially revolutionizing everything from medicine to how we move goods around the world. So I see why Kohli calls these fields overlooked giants. But if they have so much potential, why aren't they getting the same level of attention and investment as AI?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mhm.
And Kohli actually argues that it comes down to a few key factors. The first, he says, is this knowledge gap.
Okay.
These fields are complex,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the average person might not really grasp the potential impact as easily as they can with, something like a chatbot
Yeah.
or an image generator that they can play around with.
Right. It's more tangible with AI. I can see a funny image or I can have a conversation with a chatbot. But with biotech and quantum computing, it's harder to see that immediate impact.
Exactly. And so Kohli's second point is about media coverage.
Okay.
He says there's a real imbalance in how the media portrays these emerging fields. AI is flashy, right?
It grabs headlines for sure.
It grabs headlines. It feeds into those sci-fi narratives that we all kind of, love. But biotech and quantum computing, while they're equally transformative, are often seen as more niche, less sexy.
Right. It's like we as a society were drawn to the spectacle, even if the real substance might be happening elsewhere. So if knowledge and media coverage are part of the problem, what's the solution? What does Kohli actually propose we do to sort of rebalance the scales and ensure that these overlooked giants get the attention they deserve?
Well, he lays out a pretty clear call to action in the article. The first thing he says is we need to bridge this knowledge gap.
Okay.
We need more accessible education, more explainer videos, more articles like the one that, prompted this discussion that break down these complex topics for a wider audience.
Makes sense. Demystify the science, showcase the potential, get people excited. What's the second point?
Media responsibility. He really emphasizes the fact that journalists and media outlets, they have this duty to present a more balanced picture of these emerging technologies. Instead of constantly chasing the AI hype cycle, we need more in-depth reporting on the groundbreaking advancements that are happening in biotech and quantum computing.
So it's not about ignoring AI or saying it's not important. It's about broadening the lens, showing the full spectrum of what's happening in the world of technology and why it matters to everyone,
Right.
not just to scientists and engineers.
Exactly. And his third point is about collaboration. He says we need a more strategic partnership between governments and private investors.
Okay, so how would that work?
Well, governments can provide that early stage research funding, particularly in fields like quantum computing where the payoff might be years or even decades away.
Right.
And then private investors can step in to help bring those innovations to market once they're a bit more mature.
So it's about playing the long game, recognizing that some of the most important breakthroughs might not have immediate commercial applications, but they have the potential to change the world in really profound ways.
Precisely. And Kohli really emphasizes that this isn't just about abstract technological advancement. This is about the kind of future that we want to create. Are we going to be blinded by the hype, chasing the next shiny AI gadget? Or are we going to seize the opportunity to invest in technologies that could solve some of humanity's most pressing problems?
It sounds like Kohli's really urging us to be more discerning, more intentional with where we focus our attention and our resources. But is it really an either situation? Can't we advance AI while also investing in these other fields?
Of course. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Ideally, we'd have this flourishing ecosystem where all these technologies can thrive and complement each other. But Kohli's point is that right now the scales are tipped so heavily in favor of AI
Right.
that we risk missing out on some really transformative breakthroughs if we don't make a conscious effort to rebalance things.
It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. We need to diversify our technological portfolio to make sure we're exploring all avenues for progress. So we've talked about the knowledge gap. We've talked about media bias. We've talked about the need for balanced investment. But there's another crucial element to consider here. What about people? How might their lives actually be impacted by these overlooked giants as they develop?
That's a great question, and one worth pondering. I think, on the one hand, these technologies have the potential to improve our lives in countless ways, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a world without genetic diseases, where personalized medicine is the norm, where we can travel across the globe in a fraction of the time it takes today.
It's a pretty amazing picture.
It is. But on the other hand, there's always the potential for unintended consequences, too. We have to think about that.
Like what kind of downsides should we be prepared for?
Well, one concern that's often brought up is job displacement.
Okay.
As automation becomes more sophisticated, particularly with advancements in AI and AGI,
Right.
certain jobs might become obsolete. It's happened in the past,
Right.
right? Think about factory workers displaced by robots. The challenge here is to make sure that we're creating new opportunities for those whose jobs are affected,
Hmm.
and that the benefits of these technologies are distributed fairly, not just concentrated in the hands of a few.
That's a really important point. We can't just focus on the technological advancements themselves. We need to be thinking about those social and economic implications as well. How do we ensure that everyone benefits from these breakthroughs and that no one is left behind?
Yeah, it's a question we have to keep asking, right? Every time we talk about a new technology, a new breakthrough, we have to sort of wrestle with those ethical implications. Where do we draw the line? How do we make sure that these advancements actually benefit humanity as a whole, not just a select few?
Right. It's a balancing act for sure. And
Yeah.
I think that brings us back to Kohli's point about a more balanced approach to technological development in general.
Mhm.
Right now, the incentives are often skewed toward what's profitable, what's marketable, what's going to, grab people's attention. But what about those potentially life-changing innovations that might not have an immediate payoff, that might not be as flashy?
Yeah, he's really calling for a shift in mindset, isn't he?
Yeah.
A move away from those short-term gains and towards a more long-term vision of progress.
Absolutely. But how do we actually make that happen? I mean, how do we incentivize investment in those maybe riskier, potentially transformative technologies that might not have a clear path to profitability?
Well, Kohli suggests a few things.
Hmm.
One is government involvement.
Okay.
Public funding can play a really crucial role in supporting that early stage research,
Hmm.
especially in areas where the commercial applications might be years or even decades away.
Yeah, think about the Human Genome Project. That
Exactly.
was a massive government-funded effort that ultimately led to some incredible breakthroughs in medicine and
Right.
biotechnology.
It was a huge risk at the time, but it paid off in a big way.
Yeah, so it's about recognizing that some of the most important scientific advancements might not be driven by profit, at least not initially. And governments can play a role in filling that gap, providing that funding and infrastructure to get those groundbreaking projects off the ground.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not just about government funding either. We need to cultivate a culture that values scientific exploration for its own sake.
Right.
We need to celebrate those researchers who are really pushing the boundaries of knowledge,
Mhm.
even if their work doesn't have an immediate practical application.
It's about the pursuit of knowledge itself.
Absolutely.
Recognizing the intrinsic value of understanding the world around us, even if we don't know how that knowledge might be used in the future. But let's be realistic, funding is a major hurdle.
It is.
How do we convince investors, whether it's government or private, to put their money into these potentially long-shot projects, especially when there's so many other demands on resources?
It comes back to that knowledge gap we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
We need to do a better job of communicating the potential of these emerging technologies, not just to scientists and investors, but to the general public. We need to tell the stories of the researchers who are working tirelessly to cure diseases, to develop sustainable energy sources, to unlock the secrets of the universe.
Right, make it real for people.
Exactly. We need to make people understand that these aren't just abstract scientific pursuits. These are investments in our collective future.
So it's about storytelling. It's about making these complex scientific advancements relatable, showing people how these breakthroughs could impact their lives, their children's lives, the future of humanity as a whole.
Exactly. We need to paint a picture of the world we could create if we invest in these overlooked giants, a world where we've conquered disease, where we've solved the climate crisis, where we have access to clean and abundant energy. It's a future worth fighting for, and it's a future that's within our reach if we make the right choices today.
It's inspiring when you put it that way. So we've explored Tej Kohli's call for a more balanced approach to technological advancement. We've discussed the potential of these overlooked giants, the challenges we face in bringing them to the forefront, and the crucial role that each of us can play in shaping a better future. It's a lot to think about, but I hope it's left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to act.
It's been a pleasure being here. It was a great conversation.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you all for listening to the Deep Dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating exploration of the ideas and innovations that are shaping our world. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.